Hey, thanks for joining us again on another episode of Let's Get Real. My name is Morgan Butcher. I'm one of the hosts of Let's Get Real, and every week we're sitting down with public figures, pastors, leaders in our community who have roots here, and hearing a little bit more about their story, their faith, and just kind of life for them. And today we have a really special guest joining us. Former UW men's basketball coach and current Pepperdine University basketball coach, Lorenzo Romar. Lorenzo is an incredible man of faith, and was an incredible coach at the University of Washington before transitioning and now coaching at Pepperdine University. We're thankful to have him today on Let's Get Real, so let's get started. Coach, again, thanks so much for, is it okay if I call you Coach?
Whatever you want, doesn't matter.
Appreciate your time today and just making an opportunity to hang out and chat a little bit. For those of our viewers that are kind of tuning in that might not know you as well, could you just share a little bit about yourself, about kind of your upbringing and how faith has really come such a part of your life?
Well, we grew up in a family where church was not demanded, but God was mentioned every now and then. I can remember my father getting on his knees praying before he went to bed sometimes, and we were kind of, the situation was Christmas and Easter we went to church for sure.
Okay, that was me too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We were that family.
Yeah.
But nothing was ever forced on us. Never, scriptures weren't read. I knew my parents had a belief in God, but it wasn't talked about a whole lot. And I grew up thinking that, I don't know, maybe it had something to do with sports, loving sports, is that I had to do good things, and the more good things I did, the more points I would score with God. And just try to be a good person. And in comparison to others, especially where I grew up in Compton, I did okay that way, I think, but when you look at God's standard, I was falling way short. And when I was 24, I think it was, 23, I started to get more interested. And I remember going to the head of the church where we were and asking certain questions about the church, because I was challenged about, was I really, did I really have a relationship with the Lord? And I thought if I was going to church and doing what I was supposed to do, yeah, I did. But I realized I didn't. And I read the Bible for the first time. And September 10th, 1983 is where my wife and I both gave our lives to Christ. Wow. And realized that just being a good person didn't get you close to having a relationship with the Lord here on earth, as well as spending eternity with Him when we would leave this earth.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that's how I became a Christian.
Wow. That's awesome. And Coach, you could preach.
You're
a preacher.
Just telling a story.
So you really grew up ingrained in sports. I mean, went to UW played ball there, and then drafted by the Warriors, was it?
I was, yes.
Yeah. So did you grow up playing basketball? Or was basketball second choice, or was it right there at the top the whole time?
We kind of grew up playing them all, but my favorites were baseball and basketball.
Really? Okay.
And baseball, I loved baseball. I was a sports addict, as you mentioned in a different way, but growing up in Compton, it was the Dodgers, it was the Lakers, it was USC for football and UCLA for basketball. Yeah. And that was during the time when John Wooden was there, right. And John Robinson and Pat McKay, I think it was. John McKay were at USC, and the Dodgers were winning world championships, and it was just a great time. And I would listen to those sports on the radio. I would watch everything I could. Back then, there was something called the TV Guide. And whenever my mother would go to work, to get groceries, at the end of the week, she'd come back, and the first thing we wanted to look for to see was what sweets she bought and where was the TV Guide. Because we had to go look at the sports and specials section to find out what sports were going to be on television. And that we couldn't wait to do that. And we would plan our week based on what was coming on television with sports. Oh, and that's how we were into it. I mean, I had a scorebook that I got that I would literally keep score of the Dodger baseball games. I'd listen on the radio, and then someone would get a hit. I'd mark it on there in a little space, that whole thing. Yeah. But basketball won out, and I played baseball through high school and then just stuck with basketball. But I remember going to baseball practice but bringing my basketball with me. So before practice started and when it ended, I would play basketball. So just sports addict and just was obsessed with the game of basketball.
So growing up, who were the basketball players that you most wanted to play like?
Elgin Baylor was the guy who went to Seattle University. Yeah. He was the guy that just was phenomenal. Him and Jerry West, and then you Earl Monroe, Earl the Pearl. But the guy that, and I eventually got to meet him, was Bill Russell. Oh wow. Because it just seemed like the Lakers played him every year in the championship and had a tough time beating them. And he was just larger than life to me because he just kept winning. And, he had the goatee and he was 6'9" and he controlled the game. And he was the only guy that could give Wilt Chamberlain, who was a Goliath at the time, a good go at it. Yeah. The Lakers played at the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, California. And when I was with my parents, we would drive past there going somewhere. And I remember the light would catch us, the traffic light. The light's red, and I'm just staring at this forum. It's right there and on the big billboard. January 26th, Boston. That meant they were coming to town, and just what would it be like to be in that place? And those guys, I mean, there were so many players around that time that you just looked up to. I kept basketball cards, collected them, and just knew almost every player in that league if you mentioned their name. So there were a lot of players to look up to.
I love it. Now, you mentioned Coach Wooden, who was probably a big role model for you, obviously growing up in that area, and just as a coach now, I'm sure, even. And I believe it was it 2006 that you won the Coach Wooden Keys to Life Award?
Correct. Yes, it was.
What did it mean to you, growing up in that area, knowing about Coach Wooden, and then, later in life, being a coach, winning that award? What did that feel like for you?
Well, it would have been very special, having won that award. But when I was an assistant at UCLA, I got to spend hours with Coach Wooden. And to know what he stood for and to know his values, it took on even more significance for me. It's one of those very humbling situations where someone recognizes something that you did, and it was special. And Coach Wooden was right there and handed it to me, and it was pretty special.
That's great. Now,
when I have to say this. Yeah. When I was in junior college at Cerritos Community College in Southern California, I was being recruited, and one of the schools was University of Washington. And I took an official recruiting visit to Washington. And when I was leaving, I was on the plane. All I could think about in a 2.5-hour drive back was, okay, here are your schools. Which one do you want? And I just felt like Washington, after coming from Washington, was the one that I wanted to attend, but I wasn't 100% sure, but I was certainly leaning that way. And I get off the plane and, I'm walking from the gate to the front, And as I'm walking up ahead of me, there's this long hallway at LAX, and up ahead of me, I said, you know what? I recognize that guy up there, and I bet you he could give me some sound advice on what school I should go to. And it was John Wood.
Oh, wow.
So at the time, I had never met him, so I start jogging toward him, and I finally catch him. He's alone. He's by himself.
Yeah.
And I just said, Coach, you don't know who I am? And I introduced myself. I said, can I ask you a question? And I told him the schools that I had a chance to go to. And he said, listen, if you have a chance to play for Mark Harshman, he's one of the most respected I respect him as much as any coach in the NCAA. If you have a chance to play there, I would imagine it'd be hard for you to turn that down. And I went to the University of Washington. And that was my first time meeting John Wood.
Oh, that's such a great story. What a small little world that you ran into him at the airport right after that visit. That's too funny.
How about that?
Yeah. Well, Coach, one of the things that, I'm a huge UW fan. I graduated high school right about the same time that you started coaching at UW. And,
Yes.
so just so enjoyed watching, you coach and those guys play for so many years there. But one of the things that, even beyond, most people will recognize you for, being the former coach of the UW men's basketball team around here, connected to the program for what, like 17 years between playing and coaching?
Yes. Yeah.
But, you've really had an incredible impact just in this area, even still today, aside from being the coach of the men's basketball team, but just really using your platform as an opportunity to share your faith with so many in the area, school assemblies, church gatherings, community events throughout the years. When you get the opportunity like that to share with young people, whether, up here or in California or wherever you are, when you get the opportunity to share something with young people, old people about, your faith and what God has done in your life, what's the thing that you really want to make sure that you communicate to people?
That I'm here for a reason, and that is whatever success that I've experienced, it was great. It's been great for myself, my family, but God put me in this position to tell others about him and how great he is. And if I don't do that, it's, I feel like I'm burying the gift that God gave me and the responsibility that he gave me and called me to do it. I was with Athletes in Action for 7 years. And Athletes in Action is the sports branch of Campus Crusade for Christ. And we use the game of basketball as a platform to talk to the country and to the world about Jesus Christ. And so many people admire sports and pay attention to sports, and that's what we use. We use that to tell people about the goodness of Christ. And I learned a lot on how to share my faith. And when I left Athletes in Action to join UCLA staff, men's basketball staff as an assistant, I made a vow to the Lord that I would always keep a ministry mindset, even though I wasn't in ministry full time in terms of being employed. But in my mind, I would be in ministry full time. So whenever I have an opportunity to do that, I try to take advantage of it. And again, that's why I responded to you, because there was an opportunity to talk about the Lord.
Man, well, we really appreciate it, no doubt. Now, I'm just kind of curious, how has your faith, influenced your coaching and your coaching style? What's that crossover like between, coaching up these young men who come from all different backgrounds and the way that, you kind of operate in life and in your faith? How has your faith influenced your coaching?
I think it has, it's given me some consistency. It's given me a feel of integrity amongst those that we work with. I think that it's helped with trust in a lot of ways. And it's because if you try to live your life the way God wants you to live it, I think there may be some that persecute you. There may be some that write you off or don't want to be around it. But I think by and large, it's an attractive lifestyle because ultimately we were all created to have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, even though many don't take the Lord up on it. So we are at peace and at our best when we have a relationship with the Lord. And I think that if we're living that in front of people, they see that, and I think it's attractive. Our life is supposed to be salt and create a thirst, and I think people see that. And even in the times when I've made mistakes and I've done things that weren't Christian-like, and others have seen it and observed it, to be able to say, I blew that and I was totally wrong. I think even that speaks volumes. I think sometimes as Christians we believe that we have to live this perfect life in front of people. I think if you do that, it makes it seem like it's unattainable. But to see people see that you make mistakes also, and that you have flaws in your life, I think that makes it even more attractive. Not that they relish in your mistakes, but they say, you know what, this is not bad. I could do this too, and makes the Christian life maybe even more appealing. I think when Christians stumble, make mistakes, but try to pass it off as "don't judge me," that type of thing, I don't think that goes over really well. But situation, being able to be here and share my faith has, I think, just helped. I think it helps in recruiting, because we try to be truthful with those that we recruit.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that in dealing with our players every day, we treat them like they would want to be treated in terms of respect. We get on them, we get on their case. You got to make decisions, you got to discipline them, but at the same time, we try to do it in a respectful manner, and they know what to expect. I think young people deep down would like to have structure. They just want it to be consistent and know what it is.
Sure.
And when you're able to provide that for them and establish that for them, and you stick with it, I think they learn from it. And kids even come back after they played for us and says, I use some of the same principles, coach, that you use with us, with my kids and with my team.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. Now, you know, I can really relate with your coaching background because, you know, I coached 6th and 7th grade basketball for 2 years, about 5 years ago. So, you know, I really got some deep roots in the coaching game.
Hey, coaching is coaching. Coaching is coaching. You still got to make them do the right thing, right?
That's right. That's right. We are also well versed in heartbreak in basketball. We lost the championship game one year. And, you know, I think heartbreak is something that everyone can relate with, whether it's on the basketball court or in life. And, you know, I know that in coaching, you've really got to be okay with losing. And, you know, that's just kind of the reality of it. How do you know, I know that we probably have no idea the strain that coaching puts on a person, and the pressure that you have to, you know, perform and to, you know, raise these guys up and to train them. And then, you know, to have moments where, you know, you come up short. I think everyone can relate with that. How do you handle those moments of heartbreak or of, you know, failure or loss in coaching and in life? Really?
Extremely difficult. There's nothing like, you know, I don't like losing in checkers, you know, but there's nothing like working hard to recruit kids for one common goal. You go out, you practice, you work your tail off, you go out and now you compete against someone else and you come up short. I mean, it's hard to get to sleep. You watch the film over and over and over. What could I have done better? At times you beat yourself up. It's just, those are the ups and downs. And it's just, you go through situations, and I've been through them, had teams at UW where we didn't have winning seasons, and it's a long season. It's really hard. Yeah. But what my faith has allowed me to do is still keep it in perspective after the time that you grieve, it's a down, it's not fun. When you're coaching, you're judged on one thing: did you win?
Right.
And that's what you're judged on. And to keep it in perspective, when it's all said and done, why am I doing this? Am I doing this with everything that I have? Am I giving it my all? If I'm giving it my all and I know my purpose, then when the dust settles, I'm able to move on and go on with great energy. But to say when the game's over, oh, that's okay, God's in control. No, I don't feel like that. I feel like this is messed up. How come we didn't win that game?
Yeah.
But it always comes back to what is my perspective.
That's great. That's great. Well, and I think, that's such an important realization, because like we talked about, everyone will experience that in some way or some form, but to be able to, you're right, mourn and then step back and reflect and keep it in perspective, I think is great advice.
But you know what? It's the flip side of that, the other side, I think it's very difficult to handle success. I think that when you have those moments where you fall short and it appears that you might be failing, there's something within most of us that you get up, you survive, you find a way to survive. Winning success sometimes breeds contentment and arrogance.
Yeah.
And you have to, the same way that I have to keep it in perspective when things are going well, I actually have to keep it in perspective when things are going well, knowing that God has given me the ability to do this. And I'm not going to say God won the game. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying he gave me the ability to do this, and I need to make sure that I understand why I'm doing this, just like before, and keep that in perspective as well.
So I've got to ask, just as a longtime UW guy, loved watching the boys play. What is your greatest coaching memory from UW? I can tell you mine right now, but I'm really interested in yours.
Let me hear yours. Let's see if I agree with it.
Okay. I'll tell you what, man, nothing. Well, okay. There's definitely a couple, but for me, ingrained in my head is that step back Isaiah Thomas jumper to beat Arizona. That will be forever ingrained in my memory. Jumping off the couch, doing some backflips. I didn't do backflips, but I did something.
That is definitely up there. That one was really special. Another one would be when we were playing against Washington State in the 2008-2009 season. And if we won the game at home, we would have clinched the Pac-10 title for the first time in 53 years. Right, and to win that game and to watch everyone rush the floor, it was against Washington State.
Right, yeah.
So that was a great moment also. I think of the time when we were in our second year and we had lost our first 5 league games. We were 0-5 and then won our last 12 out of 13. And the last conference game we won, we played against Stanford. And they were number 1 in the country and they were undefeated. Right. They hadn't lost in league. I don't think anyone had gone 18-0 and been undefeated in the Pac-10. And all they had to do was beat us. And the game was sold out. We won the game. And again, the students rushed the floor. That was a great day that day. But I would have to say the next year in 2005, we had a really good season, and we had a selection Sunday party, and everyone showed up in the Hecate Alaska Airlines Arena, and they put the actual selection Sunday. It was up there on the big screen, and right before it came on, CBS wanted to talk to me. And they were putting on the selection Sunday, and they asked me, where did I think we should be seated? And I said, no worse than a 3rd seed, but I think we should be a 2nd seed. And of course, they already knew where we were going to be seated. And I went back down and sat with our team, and they announced we were the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. And There was a lot of pride at that point, good pride, and a real sense of accomplishment that we were able to get there and get to that level. That day was pretty special.
Oh man, being surrounded by all those players too would be just so fun to celebrate with them.
Yes, absolutely,
oh, man.
Absolutely.
So, are there a couple players you coached that just immediately just stood out from the rest when you watched them play? I mean, just any players off the top of your head that you've coached over the years that just had it.
Oh my goodness, there were.
You had a few.
There were a number of those. There were a number of those that when we first saw them, you just thought, wow, if we can get him, he's gonna make us pretty good. So, I mean, we go on. It's hard to just pick one on that one, and I'm not trying to use diplomacy there either.
No, I totally understand.
It's just there were a number of them that when we saw them play for the first time, they were pretty special. It's hard not to be mesmerized when you watch Nate Robinson's freakish athletic ability and the things that he did with his size, But by and large, there were a lot of players that the first time I saw them, I was just giddy, anticipating if we were able to get them to come to the University of Washington.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorites to watch. There was a big smooth a long time ago by the name of Sam Perkins, but I would refer to him as the little smooth. I've never watched somebody play as smooth as Brandon Roy before.
Wow,
that guy,
he certainly was.
Special.
He was accused. We had another guy that wasn't quite Brandon's level. Now, he didn't stay 4 years either, but Terrence Ross was smooth, and people accused both of those guys of not playing hard.
Really?
But they were so smooth, it looked like they weren't really trying. But if you were out there on the floor going against them, you would have changed your mind.
He better be trying, otherwise I just look real bad right now.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, Coach, can I hit you? We like to end every one of these segments with some rapid fire questions just to get to know you really well.
Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. These are just kind of off the wall, random questions. You just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. Is that fair?
Okay. All right. All right. Go.
Here we go. If you could own any animal as a pet, what would it be?
German Shepherd.
Oh, okay. I like it. Celebrity you would most want to sit down with for lunch?
Other than Christ and Martin Luther King, after those two, celebrity right now, I don't know. Rapid fire is getting me. I'm not being able to answer these quick enough.
We'll take Christ and Martin Luther, man. Those are good answers right there. I should have opened it up. All right,
okay.
Snack that is currently in your pantry that you want to eat.
Chunky Monkey ice cream that's in the freezer. Ben & Jerry's, but it would be Pop Secret popcorn.
My wife is resonating with that Chunky Monkey reference, man.
Oh my goodness. People don't know about it. People don't know about it.
It's dangerous. If you could binge watch any TV show, what would you choose for the rest of your life?
TV show. Oh my goodness. Sanford and Son would be up there.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Song that will get you on the dance floor.
Wow, that's just there's too many. I can't answer that. There are too many.
Can't even get them. Would you get on the dance floor for some Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Yeah. Earth, Wind, and Fire to me was better to listen to than to dance to, though.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate some Earth, Wind, and Fire as well. All right. Any nicknames you had growing up?
Doc and Low were the two.
Doc and Low, I like it. Sunrises or sunsets?
Sunrises, without question.
Favorite place to travel?
Favorite place to travel would be probably Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. Thing you are most thankful for?
It would be Christ dying for me and my family.
Love it. Coach, thank you so much for your time. Honestly, genuinely appreciate it and honored to spend some time talking to you today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to get a chance to say hello and get to meet you over the phone.
Absolutely. We'll be cheering for you down at Pepperdine, and God bless you.
Okay, same to you.
All right.